Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studio in Chicago, Illinois, it's time for Chicago Business Radio. Brought to you by FirmSpace, your private sanctuary for productivity and growth. To learn more, go to firmspace.com. Now, here's your host.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Chicago Business Radio. I'm your host, Max Cantor, and before we jump into today's show, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor. Today's show is sponsored by FirmSpace. Thanks to them, because without them, we couldn't be able to share these important stories. And we have a great guest today. He is the CEO and co-founder of SOUNDOFF Design. So please welcome to the show, Daryl Sneed. Welcome to the show, Daryl.
Thanks very much. Glad to be here.
So we're going to jump right in. Tell me a little bit about SOUNDOFF. What do you guys do?
So we are a lifestyle apparel brand based here in Chicago. We got started in 2016 in terms of kind of creating the foundation for the brand, and really kind of took off, I'd say, in 2018, 2019 with, I would say, a collection of everything from T-shirts, sweatshirts, snapbacks. So the category of items that would typically fall into lifestyle, streetwear-based garments. And our design ethos is very much grounded in bringing voice and statement to style and fashion. So we very much look at a lot of what's happening in our current landscape and how to translate that into graphic design and art and kind of marry it into lifestyle essentials.
Now, has this been a passion your whole life, or did something like an event or something in your life happen that made you get into this business?
No. So I would say SOUNDOFF was an opportunity that came about kind of haphazardly. So my background has predominantly been in healthcare. So I started off actually as pre-med in college, and then ended up going the route of MBA, and ended up in management consulting in healthcare, and then ended up in a couple of various different exec roles in professional advisory based companies in the healthcare space. I'd always had a passion and interest in more visual creative spaces. So I started a design brand, it's now called Recorso, back in 2012. Which is very much, it's a women's higher end luxury brand. And I had a break in 2015 in between healthcare careers, and through a conversation with one of my co-founders, Drew Ferguson, we decided this idea of there's this space of in the t-shirt realm of t-shirts, graphic t-shirts that really didn't really suit kind of more, I would say, a 35 and above crowd. So we decided to fill that space with a potential brand. And we brought on our third co-founder, Brett Grafton, who is the art director for the brand. And we decided to create a brand that filled the space of really having something that brought more visual statement and voice to modern issues and topics. And it was right also at the beginning point of the 2016 elections. So when Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump were running for president, and, we just saw such an increase in voice and statement and just kind of like, beginning to really put more emphasis on people finding their own voice. So it was kind of a good timing to create this brand ethos because we just saw culturally in America, particularly during that time, people were looking for more statement-oriented type of things. So that's kind of what haphazardly kind of became the beginnings of the brand.
Gotcha. And I think that's so cool that you all kind of identified a missing need in the market and then you filled that need. One of my favorite things about your designs as I went through your website is just the simplicity of it. I mean, the sweatshirts, the hoodies with like just the singular mustache on it or a singular chest piece. Like, I thought they were so cool. So I got to know, how have your designs evolved since founding to now?
It's interesting. When we started the brand, I would say it was very honorific, very focused on reflecting on individuals, icons that kind of paved the way for voice. So Malcolm X, Nina Simone, Josephine Baker, individuals who we kind of always identify, or figures, Joan of Arc, for example, who we identify as very much representative of voice. And then what we found through the first couple of years were people wanted to see themselves as having their own voice. So it's like we always recognize Malcolm X as somebody who really, paved the way and really does emulate this idea of sounding off and creating statement. So, but people really kind of responded to emblems and icons of things that reflected who they were. So things like the mustache, where it symbolizes the recognition of health promotion, health awareness, is very much tied into the November Men's Health Awareness Month. We moved more to graphics that really do augment people's individual style and communicate something about themselves, rather than just being, I'm gonna wear a T-shirt with Jack Kerouac on the front, which, there are people who love Jack Kerouac and love that whole beat generation and love the movement and what that stood for. But I think, in today's world, people are much, much more akin to wanting to share something about themselves and wear something that's visualized of like, I have a voice and my voice is this. So that's like, I would say that's where our design ethos has really evolved to.
Definitely. And I like I said, I love the simplicity of it. And hearing you talk now, it's so interesting now that I'm thinking back to all the designs I saw. I'm now seeing, all the subtext that is there with each design. So it's super cool. So you did start, this brand is totally original. You created it. What do you think the hardest thing about creating a brand is?
Finding audience. It's funny, when we started the brand and started the ideation of the brand in 15 and started putting, some true concreteness to the brand in 16, it was still on the precipice of build it and they will come in the online world, because it was still online shopping, what's very much still in its beginning phases, but it had matured, and it matured much faster than as we kind of got our kind of anchors built into the brand. So, the challenges today are very much still kind of similar. It's like, finding an audience. Just because you have an online store and have access to a lot of people through paid campaign and Instagram and Facebook, it still very much is like, who's your audience? How do you find them? Because there's just even more competition now. So the barriers of like having to build a store or having a storefront are less, because you can do it in a much more economical fashion of building an online store. But the competition for that same person is even harder, because we're all inundated with e-commerce now, and everyone's very adept to buying online, so which is great, but it's still very much how do you create your own ethos and voice and get it in front of enough people to make it meritable to be a sustaining brand.
Now, when did you all realize you were getting traction and people were really liking what you were putting out there?
It's been a combination of increasing some awareness through online, and through the various different online levers. And it's also having a bit of a physical space. So we have a studio space in Chicago. It predominantly situates as our, where we ship out of, where we design out of. And in late 2020, we started to really kind of open on a regular basis on like weekends, on Saturdays, as we have people who are like, and particularly in Chicago, in our neighborhood, who are, hey, can I come over and try something on? I really love it. And the more frequent we've been able to do that and have kind of that live interaction and live conversation, it really has begun to kind of help us really design much more to what people are reacting to when they see it and touch it. So it, pure online it's great. But I think, finding the hybrid in the middle of having something that is both still tactile, where people can still come in, touch, experience, and just even get a conversation around the brand. I mean, the number of people who come into our studio on the weekends when we're open and just ask, like, what's SOUNDOFF about? And in that 2-minute spiel, and when they look around, they get it. Mm-hmm. And, in some instances, they become online customers because now they know the brand, they know the quality, they know what it is. Some, they still like the store experience to being something they can tangibly kind of look at it and touch at. So, we've seen a couple different ways of how, we've captured some audience and really beginning to build some headway in that space.
Now, what kind of retailers are the best to carry your brand?
So retailers who we've talked to, we've predominantly still been solely through our online or store. We're beginning to expose ourselves into some of the wholesale space. I would say retailers that are much more akin to independent brands, brands that are not typically on Amazon. So, the uniqueness of, we have a very retail oriented product that people love the feel of it. They love the overall quality of the product. And then they love the story behind it, and they love the graphics. So, those stores and retailers where they can really kind of complement and be able to talk about, like, here's what this design's about. This whole brand is about this. You see it in not only the quality of the goods, which peers us against, very, very, anchored brands in the streetwear space in terms of quality, but then also, we have a very consistent design ethos and a very consistent voice, and people really can see it come through. And I think that's where, retailers who have that consumer conversation and direct retail conversation is going to really be something where this brand's going to, really anchor more towards.
Now, have reality TV shows that are fashion-centric, like Project Runway, Making the Cut, have they affected your industry in any way?
I would say not directly. Those shows are, if you talk about Project Runway and that genre, they're much more geared to what I consider kind of more end-to-end, so from cut and sew all the way through, whereas SOUNDOFF is much more anchored into the graphic and art and kind of design space. And, we tether into, base product that definitely fits our ethos. But we don't have to compete on the nature of, having to cut and sew and create the base design. So, which is a very different space if you're going to get into that part of brand development.
Do you have any advice for a young person who wants to get into the design industry?
Go into it with open eyes. And I think we all tend to get very starry-eyed of the success stories of the brand that, they overnight they became an instant success, or the random opportunity where you get something on somebody like a Kardashian or an influencer, and it becomes the immediate hot thing. And those are the 1% out of the 99 to compare to the 99, where it just takes a lot of hard work, and just kind of, you have to keep pushing it and keep pushing it and keep pushing it. And the brands that really do sustain are those that kind of, like, over time build their audience, build their design ethos, continue to kind of build out their overall strategy and grow it. And if you find that anomaly where you do become that overnight, it can also be a challenge if you're not operationally prepared, because if you get dumped on 1,000 orders and you don't know how to get 1,000 orders out, it could also be a big challenge, sustainability as well. So it's like, go in with as much open eyes as possible. Of, if you get to spend 20% of your time doing the creative, which is the fun part, that's a lot.
So, Daryl, if someone's looking to start repping SOUNDOFF, how can they find you guys?
So obviously we're online. So we have contact information on our website, soundoffdesign.com. All of our social media handles, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, it's at SOUNDOFF Design. And then, our studio is in Chicago in the Edgewater neighborhood. So we're usually there on Saturday afternoons, and then through me directly, through my email, which is daryl.sneed@soundoffdesign.com.
Awesome. And you can get the same products at both your in-person store and online?
Yes.
Great. Well, Daryl, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been so fun talking to you about SOUNDOFF. Like I said, I was going through your website and I was really impressed, and I really liked what you guys are putting out there.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you all again for listening to another episode of Chicago Business Radio. I'm your host, Max Cantor, and we'll see you next time.
This episode of Chicago Business Radio has been brought to you by FirmSpace, your private sanctuary for productivity and growth. To learn more, go to firmspace.com.